The people that are recruited into the Brotherhood generally come from a specific bloodline. It's in the DNA. Now, I did not come from that bloodline. And the reason that I was brought into the Brotherhood is I was born with the ability to see in, you can call it, various dimensions. One of which was to see the bank or the memories in a person's mind. In 1969, at a bowling alley in Lynn, Massachusetts, Post Office Lanes. It was the Candlepin Bowling Alley below the post office. There was only 10 lanes there. My mom and dad would go as part of a bowling league, and sometimes they would take me along. And I was 6 years old, and I'm at the bowling alley, and I'm sitting there. All the parents are bowling, and I was one of the only kids there. And this guy comes up to me, and he says, "You can see what's in the corner of that room, can't you?" And I said, "Yes." Now you have to understand that from the time I can remember, I could always see energy. I could see beyond a tree or a chair or a table or even a person. I could see these swirling, morphing bits of something. And I thought everyone could see this. I could see past events. I could see your memories. And I could see future events. And I thought this was absolutely normal. But then I realized that it wasn't normal, that nobody else could see what I was seeing. And when I began to look at people, I realized that they were all asleep. All the people around me who were walking around were virtually asleep. You could say in a trance. They couldn't see what was right in front of them. And I could, but I didn't understand it. And I could use my mind and move some of that energy or change something. I had no kind of control over this. And he said, "I'm going to show you how to control it. There are others just like you." This person would later be known as my uncle. Later, I would find out he was in a secret society called the Brotherhood, which I didn't know anything about secret societies at 6 years old. I didn't know anything about this. But he befriended me. We began to talk, and he began to give me some, you could say, exercises, mental exercises. They were called processes. Things to do with my mind, to train my mind, how to see even further and how to move energy even better. And that was the beginning of me being brought into this organization called the Brotherhood, which is a true secret society. And when we talk about secret societies, a lot of people know and heard of secret societies like the Masons. They call that a secret society. The Illuminati, they call that a secret society. Yale University has Skull and Bones, which is a very well-known secret society. How can you be well-known and be a secret society? If it's a secret, you should know about it. But it is a secret society. Many presidents, like the Bushes, were members of Skull and Bones. John Kerry, many of the directors of the CIA were members of Skull and Bones. Supreme Court justices, titans of industry were members of Skull and Bones. And I remember when George Bush wrote in his memoirs, or one of his books, he said, "When I went to Yale University, I was inducted into a secret society called Skull and Bones. A society so secret, that's all I can say about it." And no one ever talks about Skull and Bones, what goes on in that secret society. There's Bohemian Grove, which is a secret society, but it's a real place. Alex Jones actually was there with a camera, and he filmed some of the things that went on, so we know about it. There's the Bilderberg Group. And again, Alex Jones and others have gone there with cameras, filming heads of state, prime ministers, presidents, members of royal families, the Clintons, Barack Obama, the head of the IMF, International Monetary Fund, the head of the World Bank, the head of every major news outlet in the world, chairmen of the largest corporations in the world, the richest people in the world, coming out of the hotel. And it was like, this is bigger than the G7 meeting. There are more power brokers here than any event on the planet. How come it's not reported in not a single newspaper or a single media outlet? And the film is there. No one denies that it exists, but nobody dares talk about it. So the first group of secret societies are these well-known societies that nobody talks about what goes on behind closed doors. That's really the secret. But there are other secret societies that nobody knows about because they're really secret. The Brotherhood is one of those. The people in the Brotherhood are the real power brokers behind the scenes. It's not the politicians who run countries. It's not the presidents of corporations that run corporations and make the decisions. It's a shadow organization. Some people call it a shadow government that actually controls and runs the world. And the Brotherhood is at the top of the food chain. But the thing that's unique about the Brotherhood is it teaches its members who have unique abilities how to accelerate those abilities and control those abilities. And then those people, like myself, are then used for humanitarian purposes, according to the Brotherhood, nefarious purposes for those who maybe disagree with some of the principles of those organizations.
Starting, at 6, were you put into a training program? Were you indoctrinated in some way into this system or this shadow organization?
There was a TV series called The Pretender, and it talked about 1963. A young boy was brought in who had special abilities to an organization called The Center and was trained how to use those abilities. Well, it's loosely based on my story. And the idea of The Pretender is this particular person had the ability to morph into another person and virtually absorb everything that person knew and could gain the knowledge very easily. So he could quickly gain knowledge. That's just one skill that I was trained in. The other was influencing other people as well. So in the Brotherhood, there are several tracks depending on a person's abilities. But in all those tracks, you're assigned a sponsor, but we called it an uncle. Unless it was a woman, then it was your aunt. And this person was your liaison. This is the person that taught you, that trained you. It's kind of like being an apprentice to a master. And if you look at Star Wars as an example, you have the Jedi Knight has a master, and that's the person who trains the Jedi Knight in the Jedi Knight skills. In the Brotherhood, it was the same way. My uncle would sit down with me, usually at a coffee shop or something, sometimes on a park bench, and say, I want you to do this. Look at that tree. And he would give me some mental things to do with moving energy, seeing, changing my focus. And he would start teaching me how to use my mind to see, manipulate, and control my mind and energy. He would say, good, do that for 10 minutes every day. I'll see you in 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks later, I'd go back for the next lesson. So I went through a series of trainings in the Brotherhood. It also included written material. Much of it was very old because the Brotherhood is an organization that goes back over 1,000 years. And some of the manuscripts were very old. Some of them were rewritten by hand, not typed. And we would study these manuscripts. They were in homes of high-ranking members. Skull and Bones has a building on Yale University campus. The Masons have Masonic lodges, so there are buildings. But in the Brotherhood, there are no buildings. Again, it's a true underground shadow organization where you meet in homes, you meet with high-ranking members, and you are taught and trained. And then you're introduced to other high-ranking members. I was flown around the world on the Concorde, and I was in presidential palaces. I was on the phone with kings and princesses and crown princesses, prime ministers. I would be set up and meet with people in the corporate world to discuss global affairs. I was brought into the Bilderberg meetings to listen to and discuss and give opinions on global affairs based on my unique abilities to see the energy and see the future potentialities and give comments and insight. And in some cases, I was actually told by the high-ranking members of the Brotherhood that when I would go into a meeting, my job was to influence the people there through the mind, influence them to take a certain direction and track, because it was the best track for the future in terms of improving people's conditions around the world. And that's what I did. I would sometimes go in and not really say anything, but just use my abilities to, I don't want to say implant, but project certain ideas and thoughts and help people go to a certain direction. The people that are recruited into the Brotherhood generally come from a specific bloodline. It's in the DNA. Now, I did not come from that bloodline, and on occasion, there's kind of an amoeba where somebody has some abilities innate in them when they're born. Now, we've heard stories around the world of people that were born with innate abilities. This is not fantasy. This is documented, substantiated, evidence-based research where a little girl, and they have documentary shows all over the world showing these people, a little girl at 5 years old sits down at a piano and starts to play Beethoven. Never sat in front of a piano in her life, never took a lesson, never listened to Beethoven, but they are all of a sudden just playing automatically. How is that possible? That's an innate ability that that little girl was born with. People have other abilities, whether it's athletic abilities, mathematical abilities. And again, it's documented. We see it all over the world where there's a young child, 5, 6 years old, that can do math calculations and just starts writing equations down and is blowing away people that have PhDs in mathematics. They walk into, they see a formula that everyone's working on, they go, oh yes, here's the answer. And they're 10 years old. So we do know that there are people that have innate abilities and they're born with them. Some of those are difficult to quantify because they're in the psychic realm, the extrasensory perception realm. But we hear about seers or psychics or clairvoyants that are just born with the ability to see energy. The reason that I was brought into the Brotherhood is I was born with the ability to see in, you can call it, various dimensions. One of which was to see the bank or the memories in a person's mind. They took all my money away, but that didn't work. 10 years in a federal prison. But that didn't work. And so why haven't they taken me out? And the reason is, I do have a failsafe. Because when I was in the Brotherhood, there's something that I did to make sure that if anything happened to me, all will be revealed. I was in the Brotherhood for many, many decades. The Brotherhood, as I mentioned, is at the top of the food chain in terms of secret societies. When I first got into Brotherhood, it was an exciting opportunity for me to learn from someone, the only person I ever met who could actually see the same energy that I did. And he was a lot older, and he was a lot better at it. He was the Kung Fu master, and I was the wannabe. So I wanted to learn from the master, and he became my uncle. And then I started going through training, and I started reading these certain training exercises. And this was exciting. I was blown away. I was very enthusiastic, and I loved it. And it was only later that they brought me in and started saying, we need your help. Oh, I want to help. How can I help? What am I helping? We're trying to make the world a better place. Good. I'm on board for making the world a better place. What do we have to do? Well, I want you to look at the energy and tell me what you see with this leader of this country. Oh, I can do that. And I would reveal. And again, this is not unusual. Sometimes people say this is spooky or mystical. Look, we know it's been declassified that in the United States, as well as Russia and China and other countries, remote viewing has been studied at length. Billions of dollars has been spent on bringing people in with certain abilities and training them and teaching them how to remote view, which means they sit in a room and they're told, go into the Kremlin and tell me what you see. Remote view. And they would write this down. We know this. But then everything was shut down because it was a waste of money. No, that wasn't shut down. The reason it was shut down was the material was shut down, so it didn't need to be revealed anymore in a FISA warrant. a Freedom of Information Act. So the programs were never shut down. I was involved, so I know. They were blown up because it worked, and it is being used today, not just in the United States, but with the Mossad in Israel, in the KGB. When I was with President Gorbachev, and we were on our plane together, and we were flying around, he had an interpreter because he didn't speak English. And we were talking about it, and he said, "I know you," when I first met him. I'd never met him before. He goes, "I know you." And I said, "You do?" And he says, "Yes, we always talked about you." And we became friends, and we continued our relationship later until his wife passed away, Raisa, and then he passed away as well.
During this time, though, you're doing infomercials on American television. How were they both existing in your sphere at the same time?
Well, when I was involved in the Brotherhood initially, I was very young, so I was choosing my road. And one of the roads was, do I go to college? Do I go to Harvard? Do I get an education? Should I start a business? Should I go into a corporation and work a career? Should I work for the government in one of their organizations? Do I go to an ashram and become a monk? Because my high spiritual ability, that's really where I wanted to go. I said, I want to go down this road here and basically express my spirituality and pursue that track, enlightenment, self-realization. It's a beautiful thing. Money was never an issue with me. But my mentor, my uncle in the Brotherhood, took me in with a group of people and said, you have a unique track that you can choose. Whatever you want is fine. But we suggest, and they were using techniques of influence, which I immediately said, stop. I can see what you're doing. Let's just have an analytical conversation and deal with the analytical mind instead of trying to influence. So I blocked because I could see they were trying to influence. That's why they had many people sitting there. They thought they could overwhelm. But I was high enough and so advanced with my mind at that point, I could stop that. So they wanted me, ideally, to go into a variety of various businesses and experience a whole host of things so that later in my life, when I could share this with others and help others release their abilities, I would have a unique place, a level of experience that other people just didn't have. If you want to pursue spiritual enlightenment, you go to an Indian guru who's in a loincloth, who doesn't bathe, who's got a long beard, and you're thinking, I don't know if I want to be like him. So it's hard to connect. And how can that person talk about wealth creation, or how to have a great relationship and have great sex, and how to negotiate, and how to run a business, and how to start a business? And how can that person talk about how to overcome adversity? They don't have any experience in those things. So my track was laid out right from the beginning to pursue businesses, succeed, make huge amounts of money. It's estimated my business enterprises and endeavors have done, in today's dollars, probably over 25 billion in sales. Do different things, experience setbacks and challenges and roadblocks and failures and what people would call adversity. You can then experience all of these things so that when you're ready to share and reveal to others and teach them, you can come from a unique experience. That's number one. And number two, they said, Kevin, going on that track will keep you completely invisible because you'll be invisible in plain sight. You'll be on television. You'll be selling products like mega memory or mega speed reading, things that can positively impact people. You'll be fine-tuning your communication skills. You'll be fine-tuning your persuasive skills, your influence skills. And because you're taking a normal track, nobody would ever think that you are involved in something below the surface.
So the Brotherhood encouraged you then to do these pursuits with the intent of ultimately helping people, which sounds antithetical to what the mission is.
Yes, they do want things for themselves. They want to keep themselves in power because that's very addicting, but because they believe that they're the best people to govern. They think that the average person can't, and they'll screw everything up. Their ultimate goal is a humanitarian one. And it's hard for people to grasp this, but the ultimate goal is to improve the quality of life and standard of living, not for people in America, for people all over the world. So if you remember back in the 1970s, we used to say when we grew up, remember, there are starving people in China. People are starving in China. Eat everything on your plate. People are starving in China. And there were people starving in China. There were people living and sleeping on a floor. They have no running water. They have no access to medicine. They have no access to hospitals. There's abject poverty all over the world. The standard of living for 1 billion or maybe even 2 billion people around the world is absolutely horrendous. So the idea is, what can we do on a global basis, on a long-term plan, to improve the quality of life and standard of living? And I remember back in the 70s when Nixon and Henry Kissinger, who became a friend of mine, went to China to open up China. And the plan was, our plan, which was a brotherhood plan, is to improve the quality of life and standard of living for the poor people of China. And we're going to do this by a whole series of policies which will take effect over 30, 40, 50 years. It's a longer term play. And today, the standard of living and the quality of life of the people in China is dramatically different than it was in 1970. So you have 1.5 billion people. That's dramatically improved. And they're looking at India, they look at Central and South America, they're looking at Africa for sure, to improve standard of living. So the concept is actually a humanitarian one. However, the method of doing it, such as creating a war or doing other things, which we would argue the means don't justify the ends. And we always say the ends justify the means, right? That's what we say. Well, the result is so good that the way to get there, we can deal with it. Other people would look at what we're doing and saying, this is not very good. And I was one of those people. And so was President Gorbachev, and so was Henry Kissinger. We said, look, what we're doing, there are other better ways to do actions that don't have the negative effects or the evil effects or the terrible effects against mass groups of people, that will still ultimately get to the end goal, which is to increase the standard of living and quality of life. And there's 2 specific end goals, and that is virtually eliminate poverty and starvation and eliminate wars. So when I was involved in the beginning stages, I was doing what I thought was incredibly good work for the ultimate end result, which would be beyond my lifetime, which is virtually elimination of poverty and starvation and hunger and illness and sickness around the world, balancing out the level of quality of life and standard of living, raising it all over the world, and having a peaceful planet where there's minimal conflict or war or aggression between countries.
But if indeed this is such a noble society or noble goal of a secret society living in the shadow, why would you have left? Why leave if there's such a noble, honorable ethos?
So, some people claim I haven't left, but I did officially leave the Brotherhood. I reached the highest level. I was on the council of the Brotherhood. So I left, and there were several people in there, a faction, maybe about a third of people in the Brotherhood, that were in agreement with my philosophy, which was different than the majority. And the majority was much older and generational. It was kind of the new group that weren't multi-generational group of the Brotherhood, that we said, hey, it should be open to more people. More people around the world need to know what's going on. We need to shed light on what's happening around the world. Not that everyone will come out of their trance. Most people will stay asleep. So what's the downside? And the only people that'll come out of their trance or awaken are people that will embrace how to manifest their goals, dreams, and desires, how to live a better life, how to be happier, how to be more loving and kind and compassionate. And this will make the end result happen quicker. The other faction said, no, it'll create a higher chance of rebellion. And throughout history, the people in power always try to suppress those masses because their number one fear is rebellion, because there's a very small number of people at the top. and rebellion, there's huge numbers. So just like when the British went into China, the idea was, how do we prevent the Chinese from trying to overtake us? Let's get them all on opium. So we'll keep them asleep effectively by drugging them. So this is how you minimize the masses. Our idea was, let's give the opportunity for people to become awake. Let's share the truth that they don't want you to know about. Let's open up people's eyes for those who are willing and ready. Let's bring people out of their trance. And those people, some of them will embrace, some of them will be rebellious. But overall, we will get to the end result faster. More love and compassion in the world, less war, less poverty, more prosperity and abundance, and a greater standard of living and quality of life for people all around the planet.
So what is the truth that the secret societies didn't want the people to know? What don't they want us to know?
The real truth, which has been around for centuries, which is why for centuries the powers that be wanted to keep people illiterate. It's all about, the truth is, they don't want you to know the true power that you have. If they can make you believe that you are less than them, not as smart as them, helpless, powerless, that's how they control you. So the truth that they don't want people to know is that you have infinite, unlimited power, that you are a creative being. You have the power to create your reality and the life that you choose and want. God dwells within you as you. Their idea was, look, if we improve standard of living and quality of life, people don't have to come out of their trance. Their lives are better. My point was, we should do both. They did not want both. They just wanted standard of living and quality of life. We, myself and others, our small faction, we believe that people should have both.
So within and outside the Brotherhood, what price have you paid for that thinking?
You know, people always wonder, if they are so powerful, how are you still around? Why are you still alive? Because at the end of the day, people have been killed. And again, it's not a conspiracy theory. We do know this. It's not talked about openly because people are fearful. But if you look at the methodology of how the powers that be, whether it's the Brotherhood or whether it's just politicians, how a person is attacked. If a person is saying something that they don't want revealed, the first thing that's always done is discredit that person. Use the media, which they control, to discredit the person so no one listens to them anymore. Well, they tried that with me. Multiple lawsuits, a completely organized PR plan to discredit me. But all that really did was made me more powerful. So the first thing they do is try to discredit you. The second thing they try to do is just wipe you out financially. Because since most people are so in love with their money and their power and their influence and their status and their position, if you take away the money, you've crushed the person. They will crawl into a hole and run away. And I know a lot of people that had huge amounts of money and the government threatened to take it away. They left, they crawled into a hole, and you never heard from them ever again. There's always a vulnerability, and they will use it. In my case, I don't have a family. I had virtually no vulnerability, so they couldn't hit me there, and they couldn't hit me with money because I didn't care about it. And I also knew that you can't take away my ability to create. So since I had no attachment to money and no vulnerabilities, they took all my money away, but that didn't work. And they do the next thing, which is put the guy in prison. Because putting a person in prison, number one, takes him out of the public light. Nobody can hear him because he can't talk, he's in prison. And you destroy his credibility. You discredit him. They held me in contempt of court, not charged with a crime, held in contempt of court and given the longest sentence in the history of America for contempt of court, 10 years. 10 years. And you know how much fine I got? 0. In the contempt of court case that I went to prison for, I didn't get 1 penny in restitution or fine because there was nothing done. I didn't commit a crime. I did nothing wrong. Contempt of court is not a felony. It's not even a misdemeanor. I got the longest sentence, more than rapists or murderers, 10 years in a federal prison. But that didn't work. And so why haven't they taken me out? And the reason is, I do have a fail-safe. Because when I was in the Brotherhood, there's something that I did to make sure that if anything happened to me, all will be revealed.